If you have followed how to make a chopping board part 1, the pieces of wood are glued together and ready for finishing. Unclamp the chopping board and remove the butter paper stuck to it. Use a chisel and a mallet to clean up the dried glue. You can hold the work in place against a clamped scrap of wood for support. Plane the chopping board along the grain. Use the straight edge of a ruler to check if it's level. Plane the areas that are uneven. Flip the chopping board and plane down the other side as well. Use a ruler and a pencil to mark 2 points set apart by 18 inches along the long grain. Use a tri-square to draw a straight line from each point that runs across the board. Clamp the chopping board and cut along the 2 lines with a saw. Remember to hold the waste wood as you approach the end of the cut. Plane the end grain slowly. Check with a tri-square if the side is consistently square. Plane from both sides and be careful not to chip the edge. Flip the chopping board over and repeat the step on the opposite end grain. Mark out 1 centimeter from every corner along the thickness of the chopping board. This will help round the corners uniformly. Draw a straight line along each point with a tri-square. Chisel the corners. Make sure you chisel at the correct angle and do not cross the line. Round the corner off with a rasp. Smooth the corner with a file. Sand the corner with medium grit sandpaper. Do the same for the remaining corners. Round the side edges with a block plane. Sand the edge with medium grit sandpaper. Do the same for the remaining edges. For the end grain, remember to plane from both sides. Round the corners well with a rasp. Smooth them out well with a file. Finish by sanding them with a medium grit sandpaper. File the sharp edges on the bottom so that they don't hurt anyone. Sand all the edges. Scrape the top of the chopping board along the grain with a scraper. Brush off the shavings. Scrape the edges as well. Use a sanding block and a medium grit sandpaper to sand the chopping board. Sand the edges of the chopping board. Switch to a finer grit sandpaper. Finally, sand with around 120 grade sandpaper. Apply an edible oil with a brush on the chopping board. Wipe off the excess oil with a cloth and leave the board to dry. You have now learned how to make a chopping board.